Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. An important issue regarding the Islamic economic directives is the forbiddance of riba. Now, the question arises that why at all is interest or riba forbidden? What is the element in riba which makes it such a prohibited thing in Islam? And not only in Islam, but other Sharias before Islam themselves are very clear and very explicit in the fact that interest is forbidden at all costs. Now, the reason that interest is forbidden is that it causes a big injustice and oppression, or in the word of the Quran, zulm, to come into being. And this oppression can be seen from the fact that when a person who takes an interest-bearing loan, he has not only to return the principal amount, he has also to create the amount which is over and above that principal amount, and which is called interest. So we know that whenever we borrow money, we spend that money. We of course consume that money. That money can be consumed for our own needs, and it can also be consumed for our business or trade needs. And once one has to return this amount, not only the original amount has to be returned, but also the amount which is over and above the original amount, which is actually the amount of interest, has to be returned also. So this causes a lot of injustice to come into being, because we know that something which has to be borrowed, has been consumed. So not only is the original amount to be returned, but the amount which is over and above the original amount, that has also to be created in the first place, because it had been consumed in the first place. So this brings into existence an injustice which the Quran calls zulm. And the Quran is absolutely certain about the fact that interest of all sorts is prohibited, whether a loan is acquired for personal use, an interest-bearing loan, or for business use. The issue of interest is notwithstanding whatever the consumption or the nature of consumption of that loan is, whether the loan is consumed for one's own private purposes or whether it's consumed for one's business purposes. It's absolutely not allowed to charge interest on any loan. Now, in the time of the Prophet also, there were people who thought that interest is something which is very familiar to sale and purchase, and the Quran was very stern on them. And the words of the Quran, as quoted in Surah Baqarah, are الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ الرِّبَا لَا يَقُومُونَ إِلَّا كَمَا يَقُومُ الَّذِي يَتَخَبَّطُهُ الشَّيْطَانُ مِنَ الْمَسِّ ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا الْبَيْعُ مِثْلُ الرِّبَا وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا فَمَنْ جَاءَهُ مَوْعِظَةٌ مِّن رَّبِّهِ فَانْتَهَى فَلَهُ مَا سَلَفَ وَأَمْرُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَمَنْ عَادَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. A translation of this verse of Surah Baqarah reads, "Those who devour interest will rise up on the day of judgment like the man whom Satan has driven to madness by his touch, because they claim that trading is like interest. And how strange it is that Allah has permitted trading and forbidden interest. Consequently, he who received this warning from the Almighty and desisted in obedience thereto, then whatever he has taken in the past belongs to him, and his fate is in the hands of Allah. And those who repeat this offense will be companions of the fire, and they will abide therein forever." So we have very clear words and a very clear verdict from the Quran, which says that people who do not desist from taking interest, from charging interest, they could dwell forever in hell. They will abide forever in hell, which is something, of course, something we must be very, very careful about. Interest is not a very simple matter. It cannot be taken in a very easy way. The Quran is absolutely clear about the fact that people who charge interest, when they say that interest is something which is very similar to trading or sale or purchase, then this is something which only a mad person can say, because there's a fundamental difference between trade and an absolutely fundamental difference between interest. Of course, a person who is a tradesman, he spews his capital in the market. He takes all the risks. On the other hand, a person who charges interest, he is a selfish person. He has no concern of what the borrower could be while he has to return that loan. And as I said and explained earlier, that this is the big injustice which comes into being when the person acquires a loan on interest. He has not only to create the principal amount, he has to create once again the amount which is over and above the interest, the interest-bearing loan amount, so that the interest could be returned. And this is what makes this interest-bearing loan a very unjust thing. And the Quran has said that all such injustices have been prohibited. And as I said earlier, the Quran is very, very stern about the fact that people who, in spite of this warning, do not desist from charging interest, they could dwell in hell forever. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات.